Thank you for inviting a small island state like Barbados to have a voice in these discussions. That doesn't happen very often. Whether we refer to the triple planetary crises of climate, pollution, and biodiversity loss, or the compounding, cascading food, energy, and financial crises, the world is at a crossroads. The countries of the global south, despite their limited contribution to these crises, have been and continue to be disproportionately affected by them. And this Bridgetown Initiative is not just a proposal, it's a movement, it's a call to action. It is an example of a small island developing state saying there's certain systemic inequalities, but at the same time unveiling a solution to address these inequalities. The Bridgetown Initiative is about transforming the global financial institutions, the MDBs, to be more responsive to the real needs of countries in the current and future crises. At the international level, the G20 pledged to rechannel $100 billion worth of SDRs from members to vulnerable countries in October 2021. And the fact remains that we cannot go to COP28 in November with only mere promises or pledges. We need to move pledges to action and go to COP with something substantial. And the Bridgetown Initiative calls for the multilateral development banks to shore up investment in countries by lending more and by using increased risk appetite, new guarantees, and the holding of SDRs to expand lending to governments that need it. And if we just look at COVID-19, and I don't need to tell you about the devastating impacts this has had, especially the economic impacts on small states that have a reliance on tourism, the impact was absolutely devastating. And our health systems buckled under the stress. And it will take our health systems decades to recover. But what happens when the next inevitable pandemic comes? Have we learned our lesson that the health of a nation is the wealth of a nation? How prepared are we? Do you know that for the cost of 10 fighter jets, we can have enough resources to adequately prepare for the next pandemic? And just recently, I had the honor to co-chair the negotiations of the 2023 Bridgetown Declaration on Non-Communicable Diseases and Mental Health, which was launched by Small Island Developing States ministers in Barbados just a few days ago. And I did this with my fellow ambassador from Fiji. And for us, this was a declaration about SIDS, for SIDS, by SIDS. So I really urge you to take a look at that Bridgetown Declaration. Because despite their tiny 1% share of global population and also the non-existent contribution that we've made to greenhouse gas emissions, SIDS are the most disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis and by climate-related natural disasters. So in launching this Bridgetown Declaration on NCDs and mental health, SIDS have really committed to undertake actions that address NCDs and mental health as an integral part of climate change resilience and pandemic preparedness. So I say all of this to compound the fact that effective financing for health and rebuilding health systems in small states must also be high on the global financial agenda. And the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on developing countries, including those in Africa and the Caribbean region, was also fundamentally as a result of inequities in access to vaccines and vaccine hoarding by large countries. There's an urgent need to move from promises and pledges to action. And this can only be done through global convergent policymaking and coordinated political actions to tackle the rising threats for health and climate. But it requires global moral leadership. And the Summit for a New Global Financial Pact, the convergence of SIDS ministers on the 2023 SIDS and NCDs and Mental Health Bridgetown Declaration, and the partnership between CARICOM and the African Union, and indeed this H20 Summit are just a few examples of how we can move to concrete action. Thank you very much.